Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Days after the 12th anniversary of DACA, President Biden announces a new executive order aimed at protecting the undocumented spouses and children of U.S. citizens. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Maya Trabulsi. About 500,000 families will now be able to apply for lawful permanent residency. KPBS reporter Andrew Dyer has more.
These couples have been raising families, sending their kids to church and school, paying taxes, contributing to our country.
Advocates and lawmakers were on hand for the long-rumored policy change announcement. Biden's executive order applies to undocumented spouses who've lived in the U.S. at least 10 years and their children. Current policy would require these spouses to leave the country for another 10 years in order to come back legally. Biden says that's a problem.
We can fix that, and that's what I'm going to do today. Fix it.
The White House says the change impacts 500,000 Americans and 50,000 children. Tammy Lynn is a professor and runs the Immigration Law Clinic at University of San Diego. She says the change will be felt especially in San Diego, including among the so-called dreamers here under DACA.
I have a lot of DACA clients who've been here since they were little, married U.S. citizens, and for whatever reason, it's been a long journey to even try to fix their status, and their kids almost, maybe graduating 5th grade at this point.
The policy, sometimes called parole in place, isn't new. Spouses of U.S. service members and their families are eligible. Lynn says despite the policy expansion, the process still won't be easy.
It's not as easy as it sounds. Just because they've been here for 10 years, just because they're married to a citizen, it's not a guarantee.
Along with the new policy, Biden also announced an executive order easing the work visa process for DACA recipients and other U.S. college graduates. Lynn says those affected by the change should get their documents ready, but cautions against paying anyone until they talk to an attorney or a reputable immigration organization. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
For nearly a year, KPBS has covered the progress and shortcomings of the CBP One mobile app for asylum seekers. In a few minutes, we take a look at how it's working for users as President Biden limits new arrivals. But first, tonight, the public gets a chance to give some input on plans to move railroad tracks away from the crumbling bluffs in Del Mar. SANDAG is looking at 3 possible routes. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne is live in Del Mar, where they're holding a public workshop.
Amitha, yes, we're here at the San Diego Marriott in Del Mar, where SANDAG is hosting an in-person community meeting to meet with residents in the community and give them more information on the 3 possible routes for the relocation of the Del Mar rail line. And now these meetings are really important and something SANDAG is working on to inform the community, answer questions, and any doubts they may have over this project that we know needs to happen at some point very soon because those bluffs are unstable and we need to relocate that rail line. Here with me, I have Omar Atai with SANDAG. And now we know we are studying 3 routes. That's what SANDAG has announced. And I think the big question everyone has, Omar, is whether or not these routes can change. Are they the final ones? What is happening?
No, yeah, these routes can certainly change. We're early in the process. Like you said, this is a time for the public to come out and provide their comments and really on what they want to see. But, there could be comments that lead to new routes that we could potentially analyze.
Thank you, Omar. And I know that one of the routes that did come out of one of these meetings was the one that runs along the I-5 freeway. And so they are really encouraging the community to come out and get more information here. We'll be here at the San Diego Marriott in Del Mar from 6 to 7:30, bringing you some updates, and we'll have a full update for you tomorrow on Evening Edition and on KPBS.org. Live in Del Mar, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And thank you for that report, Tanya. San Diego firefighters are helping to fight the post-fire near Gorman, California. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says thick, dry vegetation is keeping the fire burning.
The post-fire has burned more than 15,600 acres in the northwest corner of Los Angeles County since Saturday. It's 24% contained as of Tuesday afternoon. CAL FIRE says nearly 1,700 personnel have been assigned to the fire, including 22 from San Diego. San Diego Fire Rescue Deputy Chief Dan Eddy says he expects other communities to also ask San Diego for help in the coming days.
So I would expect to the north of us, LA County, Orange County, Riverside, Santa Barbara, those ones, if they get something, they're already thin, so they're going to be requesting help from us for sure.
CAL FIRE says firefighters worked overnight to stop the fire from spreading. They said dense fuels kept it burning. Eddy says that's something for San Diego to keep in mind as heavy rains have helped vegetation grow in recent years.
Having a fire that large, Southern California, earlier than July, shows me and should show San Diegans the fact that we're drying out. We're drying out right now. We're drying out earlier than we did before. And so fire conditions are going to be increased.
Another group of San Diego firefighters just returned from Riverside County, where the Lisa fire is now 100% contained. CAL FIRE says the fire started Sunday afternoon and burned 890 acres. The causes of both fires are under investigation. Eddy says it's important to follow evacuation orders and have a go bag ready with food, cash, and a day's worth of clothing.
We will come in, I promise, as the fire department, and do everything we possibly can to protect your house, protect your family, whoever it might be. But go if you're told to go.
San Diego County residents can sign up for emergency alerts to their cell phones or email at alertsandiego.org. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
More clouds lingering at the coast. In the short term, though, we will see some notable changes as we go down the road, and that will play directly into our temperatures, especially over the interior. Meanwhile, there remains a fire risk here throughout the desert locations, points off toward the east. And we'll talk about that heat building, how high the mercury will go as we look at trends here later on this week. Into this weekend, all those details are coming up in just a bit.
San Diego County's lead physician, Dr. Wilma Wooten, is leaving. The county announced Dr. Wooten's retirement today after 23 years of service. She served as the county's public health officer for 17 years, during which she was a public face amid numerous media stories, including wildfires, measles, H1N1, and the COVID-19 pandemic. President Biden's new executive actions direct asylum seekers toward existing legal pathways. But KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis says those pathways aren't working for the most vulnerable migrants.
Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process.
When President Joe Biden announced the new asylum restrictions earlier this month, he said asylum seekers should use existing legal pathways to enter the U.S.
For example, by making an appointment and coming to a port of entry.
Make an appointment sounds easy, and it is, at least in theory. All you have to do is download the CBP One app on your smartphone, fill out the application, and schedule an appointment. But in practice,
the app is famously glitchy. In preparing for this interview, I tried to use the app. I downloaded the app and I tried to make an appointment, and it glitched out.
That is Jeremy Young. He's an attorney with Al Otro Lado, a nonprofit law firm that represents migrants with asylum claims. And he says CBP One has even deeper problems that go way beyond just being glitchy.
Not everyone has a smartphone.
Migrants without smartphones cannot get appointments. Also, the app only comes in 3 languages, so good luck if you do not speak English, Spanish, or Haitian Creole. And using the app is practically impossible for migrants with certain disabilities. For example, people who are blind.
What the app does effectively is it precludes these people from the asylum process.
The app's biggest problem might be that demand heavily outweighs supply. There are only 1,450 CBP One appointments available every day. but tens of thousands of migrants trying to get one.
What you're doing is you're funneling everyone into one line, and the line is already longer than any line you've ever seen in your life.
Biden's executive actions do not increase the number of CBP-1 appointments. Already in Tijuana, the average wait time is more than 7 months. And local officials worry that migrant shelters there will overflow with more people waiting for appointments.
Llevo ya casi 6 meses.
I've been waiting for almost 6 months, one woman tells us.
8 meses y una semana.
8 months and 1 week, tells us another woman named Maria. She's traveling with her 2 teenage sons. Jasmine is the asylum seeker who has been waiting 6 months. She says that the long wait times are taking a toll on everyone's mental health.
Aquí en los albergues hay mucha ansiedad, depresión por parte de mujeres, por parte de niños.
She says that a lot of the women and children in the shelter are depressed and anxious. Some of the women are experiencing hair loss.
Sí, es frustrante. Hay mamás que están quedando calvas. O sea, las que llevan 5 o 6 meses aquí refugiadas.
Maria, she started to cry when I asked her how long she's been waiting.
Es mucho tiempo esperar. Y nosotros huimos por la inseguridad que hay en Michoacán.
Maria says that she decided to flee her home in the Mexican state of Michoacán after a local drug cartel burned her business to the ground and tried to recruit her 2 teenagers. She doesn't feel safe in Tijuana. She's afraid that the cartel will come and find her. Maria has tried to request asylum in person at the legal border crossings, but every time, Border Patrol agents just keep turning her back, telling her to use the CBP-1 app.
Nos dicen que tenemos que pasar legalmente, pero pues también si legalmente no se puede, ¿qué podemos hacer?
Maria says she wants to follow the legal process, but she's starting to lose hope. And she's not alone. Officials in Tijuana say CBP-1's long wait times actually contribute to illegal crossings. Enrique Lucero is head of Tijuana's Migrant Affairs Department. He says roughly 1/3 of migrants who cross the border illegally only do so after they try to schedule CBP-1 appointments.
Y ellos llegan con mucho estrés postraumático, con psicosis, y tratan de cruzar lo más rápido porque creen que esa persecución los va a alcanzar aquí en Tijuana.
He says migrants lose hope after waiting several months. They don't feel safe in Tijuana and are so desperate that they decide to cross illegally.
Porque sí, es parte del problema de la desesperación.
Lucero believes that forcing more migrants to use the app without increasing the number of appointments could intensify the same crisis that Biden is trying to solve.
Si vas a imponer esta medida, pues aumenta las citas de CBP-1, ¿no?
Last week, several immigrant advocacy groups filed a lawsuit to block the new rules. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Biden announces new deportation protections for undocumented spouses and children of U.S. citizens. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
As Pride Month rolls on, LGBTQ plus rights are at the center of debate in state legislatures. This as voters are faced with 2 presumptive presidential candidates with starkly different views on the matter. Our Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook has a look at where they stand.
June is Pride Month.
Pride means be happy, be yourself.
A celebration of the progress the LGBTQ plus community has made on the road to acceptance and equality.
We're not weird. We're not on the fringe. We're here.
President Joe Biden says the protection and expansion of rights for the community is central to his campaign and administration.
You are loved. You are heard. You are understood. And you belong.
Biden signed the Respect for Marriage Act in 2022, which provides federal protections for same-sex couples. But like many Americans, his beliefs have changed over time. From supporting the Defense of Marriage Act while serving as a senator,
marriage is between a man and a woman,
to an evolution a few years later as vice president.
Men marrying men, women marrying women are entitled to the same exact rights, all the civil rights, all the civil liberties.
Around that same time, former President Donald Trump stated his position.
I don't support gay marriage.
In 2016, when asked about his view on same-sex marriage, he said he was fine with it and that the Supreme Court had settled the matter. Trump's first-term agenda included rolling back a number of protections for LGBTQ+ individuals, including banning new recruits who are transgender from serving in the military. Throughout his 2024 campaign, he's put a focus on banning transgender athletes from participating in women's sports.
Something I find hard to believe that I even have to say, I will keep men out of women's sports.
Trump has also said he'd seek to make gender-affirming care for minors illegal if he returns to the White House.
According to new data from the Pew Research Center, the views of these candidates are generally in line with their voters. For example, Biden supporters are 5 times as likely as Trump supporters to say the legalization of same-sex marriage is good for society. Reporting at the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Tomorrow is Juneteenth, the national holiday celebrating the end of slavery across America in 1865. Today, some San Diego students raised a flag to honor the day. KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us the event provided a significant history lesson.
11-year-old Kaylin Stewart wants you to know something important.
Juneteenth is a special holiday that celebrates the freedom of African Americans from slavery.
She is one of a group of San Diego Unified students who took time from their summer vacation this morning to talk about Juneteenth and also read some inspirational poetry.
Be a rainbow in the cloud, be a free bird on the black of the night wind. Shine on, honey. Let our rejoicing rise high as the
The San Diego Unified School District has made a tradition of flying flags that show unity and diversity. The Juneteenth flag is red, white, and blue in a formation that represents a promising horizon for the Black community, with a star that confirms they are American.
Juneteenth is a significant day in American history. You know, some folks might think it's just a Black history event, but really Black history is American history.
Juneteenth is a blended word coming from June and 19th. A date in history made famous in the southeast Texas island community of Galveston. Just 40 miles from Houston stands the official monument with a statue of U.S. Army General Gordon Granger announcing the end of slavery on June 19, 1865, almost 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It took that long to deliver the news to the last of the slaves who had not heard it. Kaylin Stewart wants you to know that, too.
Can you imagine waiting that long to find out that you're free? It's a reminder of how important it is to never give up on fighting for what's right.
Tonight, the Juneteenth flag flies below the American and California flags, and not far from flags that remind people that Black lives matter and remember the Kumeyaay land the district sits on, and the Latin and LGBTQ+ communities that make up a part of the district's diversity, and the lessons they offer students.
I think that they're able to go forward with their advocacy and not be a bystander when things happen, whether it's things about race or gender or identity in any kind of way.
Important learning happening this summer. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Tomorrow, Americans can celebrate Juneteenth at one of our national parks for free. The National Park Service is waiving all entry fees. This is the first year that day will be a free entry day at national parks. Fees for parking and activities will still be in effect. Also, parks operated in partnership with outside parties may charge other fees. With millions of Americans under heat alerts this week, households and businesses might want to think about how extreme heat could impact their bottom line. Karen Kafa has a look at some of the numbers and ways for households to safely cut costs.
Extreme heat is becoming more frequent and more costly.
We would never think about planning for wildfire season or hurricane season just during those seasons.
Ashley Ward of the Duke University Heat Policy Innovation Hub says that these punishing heat waves make it more expensive to cool a home.
When temperatures overnight don't fall below 75 degrees, for example, it doesn't give the body or any living thing or our energy systems time to recover from that daytime exposure.
David Tinsley, senior economist for the Bank of America Institute, says their analysis found higher average temperatures boosting consumers' average monthly utility payments by 23% since 2019.
All the data is suggesting that these heat waves are hotter and are lasting longer. And so when that occurs, people have to turn up their aircon and leave it on longer, and that's adding to cost.
There's a burden on businesses, too. In a 2023 report, the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee cited data pointing to more than 2.5 billion hours of lost labor across certain sectors like agriculture, construction, and manufacturing.
These extremes of heat are really impactful. So it does have a somewhat depressing effect on the overall economy.
Extreme heat can also disrupt the airline industry. When air is hot and less dense, planes need less weight or more runway for takeoff. That can lead to bumped passengers or baggage or canceled flights. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
As we work our way throughout the overnight, we will see those low clouds again return to the coastal zones, even throughout some of the far, again, western interior valleys. Temperatures here dropping down into the lower 60s, but most of that fog again confined to the immediate shoreline. Out over the interior will drop down into the low 50s around Ramona, mid 50s toward Mount Laguna, and near 70 heading into Borrego Springs. As we venture our way to Wednesday, after that morning low cloudiness along the coast, we will notice a slightly warmer afternoon throughout much of the state, and this will be a trend that we will see continue as we work our way down the road. Borrego Springs up to 104 tomorrow afternoon. Mount Laguna at 70 degrees, 74 Oceanside, 71 Chula Vista. But notice the interior valleys here still warming up into the mid 80s. We can take your time here with future satellite and radar. And notice later on, you can see it. Yep, there's the low clouds forming right along the immediate coast, but they're not going to linger long. I mean, in fact, by mid-morning, we start to see a little push here that they'll start to drift their way off the coast. And over time here later on this week, we will see less in the way of low cloudiness, especially toward the coast to come Saturday into Sunday. That's when we'll really start to see those temperatures responding, climbing back up into the upper 70s. Overnight lows down into the lower 60s. Meanwhile, here toward the interior valleys, a partly sunny Wednesday. But wow, look at this. By the time we go into the weekend, we'll be approaching 90 degrees, along with the more sunshine on the way. Mountainous locations looking breezy here heading in toward Thursday, but here too a noticeable jump in the mercury temperature-wise as we go into the weekend. And throughout the deserts, we'll also be climbing up to near 110 degrees on Friday and likely into the 110s here by the end of the weekend. Those overnight lows too will be climbing up through the 70s and into the 80s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
If you're craving foreign foods this week, bring your appetite, but leave your passport at home. A Taste of Little Italy is back. Dozens of traditional and contemporary Italian restaurants are participating this year. That includes the Frost Me Cafe and Bakery, whose owner won season 9 of Cupcake Wars. The Little Italy Association says participants will walk away with a full stomach and a history lesson about the neighborhood.
Little Italy is actually an Italian fishing community. There were other cultures and ethnicities here, but predominantly Italian. That's why it's called Little Italy. The great thing about this event is actually it, over the last 16 years, has helped us raise over $300,000 to benefit the programming, the beautification, and the maintenance of our community.
The event runs today and tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's sold out, but visitors are encouraged to try any of the restaurants in the neighborhood. Parklets, those outdoor patios placed on top of parking spots on city streets, emerged as a lifeline for restaurants and bars during the pandemic, keeping them afloat. KPBS reporter Alexander Wynn says one North County city is now going to make those businesses pay for the privilege.
Downtown Encinitas is bustling with shoppers and restaurant goers this afternoon, and patio seating is a popular option on a sunny afternoon. But these patios that were supposed to be a temporary solution have become a fixture in the city.
People just plain want to be outside.
This is especially true in a beach town like Encinitas. But come August, these restaurants and bars will have to pay a fee to keep these parklets. Approved last week by the Encinitas City Council, businesses will have to pay a fee of $2.50 per square foot for the loss of the parking spaces. Culture Brewing Company owner John Niedenhofer supports the fee.
I certainly would prefer there were no fee, but I'm a realist. If you want something that has value, it should be paid for, and it has value to the city.
He says the parklet has added 60% capacity to his tasting room. Down the street at Cake House Dispensary, General Manager Erica Arroyo says the parklets helped increase sales at her store.
I definitely think it helps foot traffic. People are comfortable with the zones that they kind of sit in. They can come and kind of ease their way into the neighborhood.
The change comes after more than a year of mounting frustration from other businesses over a lack of parking spaces. A couple doors down from Culture Brewing is Encinitas Barbershop. Owner Raul Villamar says business is down 40 to 60% because of the parklets.
We don't have any parking, and my customers keep on complaining. I'm 40% to 50% down on the weekdays, 50 to 60% down on the weekends because nobody wants to come down on here.
There are 27 outdoor dining parklets in the city, taking up 59 public parking spots. The city is looking at options to make these parklets permanent. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR Morning Edition has an interview with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on President Biden's recent executive orders on immigration. And KPBS Midday Edition is dedicating tomorrow's show to the Juneteenth holiday. That airs at noon on KPBS FM. And if you haven't already, check out our YouTube page. That's where you'll find all of our stories, including an in-depth feature reporting. You can subscribe and get notified when new items are posted. And you can watch our Evening Edition live stream weeknights at 5 p.m. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amita Sharma, and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.